we need to find ways to make sure that Africa does not remain a land of perpetual raw material extraction. Because, you know, you talk about the DRC, you know, for over 2 decades, or going to 3 decades, Eastern DRC, about 6 million people have been killed while we loot the raw material away. So if that can enable that environment, it would be great.
Where is the leadership to do that? Let's face it, when I was a kid, I used to hear that Africa consumes what it does not produce. Africa produces what it does not consume. But I am now in my 60s, man.
But we can change that around, because really, when you look at the continent in terms of food, in terms of, okay, let me give you an example. You take a ride from Kampala to Gulu. The streets are lined up with food production. You do the same from Nairobi, from Dar es Salaam to Dodoma. Food all over, all over the countries. But the means to transport food from one place to another, the infrastructures to enable it is not there.
Let's go. How do you respond to that?
Let me first, actually agree with the Reverend. Let me agree with you on a very important advice you gave us, on diversification. And that issue of diversification is actually at the center of the work we are doing now in the Africa region of the World Bank. We are working with countries to make sure they create the right regulatory framework, build the right infrastructure for private sector to come in and diversify our economies. It's important to understand that it's not going to be our governments alone who can do this, who can transform our raw materials, add value, and diversify not only export but also markets. So this is certainly part of my own agenda as a chief economist for Africa, and this is certainly one of the things that I'm doing. I'm actually launching a whole study on positioning Africa to tap new markets in Asia, for example, those markets for value-added products. So this is certainly one point where we agree. Second, on corruption, on fighting corruption. It's like 20 years ago, President Wolfenson called corruption a cancer. So yes, we all agree that corruption is certainly one of the barriers to growth and development in Africa. But the question is, should we organize ourselves as African countries to fight corruption, or should we wait for people coming from Washington and from the World Bank and the IMF to do it? Well, it's not going to be efficient.
I think it's a global issue, really.
It's a global issue, and it's a local issue, right? Global, it takes cooperation from different countries.
It takes two to tango.
Exactly. It takes regulation from countries of origin of investments, for example. And at local level, it takes committed governments.